Welcome to the Deep Dive. You know we love to get a little dark, and today we're diving headfirst into the story of the Granny Ripper, Tamara Samsonova.
That's right. We'll be looking at this YouTube video by Bailey Sarian, which tells us all about this seemingly ordinary grandmother with a shocking double life.
So buckle up, because this deep dive is full of unexpected twists and turns. I mean, just starting off, this woman, Tamara, lived in St. Petersburg, Russia, and seemed totally normal.
Yeah, she had studied linguistics, worked as a travel agent, and was married for 30 years to her husband, Alexei.
Seems pretty average, right? So what happened?
Well, that's where things take a turn, because Alexei suddenly disappears.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Tamara reports him missing to the police and suggests maybe he ran off with another woman, but
So what happened to him?
the case went cold, and Alexei is never seen again.
Wow, so that's our first mystery, and it really sets the stage for what comes next.
Right, so after Alexei disappears, Tamara starts renting out rooms in her apartment.
Oh, so she's a landlord now.
Exactly, but she has a hard time keeping tenants, and they never stay very long.
I wonder why.
Well, neighbors reported hearing loud arguments and disturbances coming from her apartment.
Oh, that's never a good sign.
Yeah, it kind of hints that maybe there's something else going on with Tamara.
Right, like a darker side.
Uh-huh, and this is where those infamous diaries come into play.
Okay, so tell me about these diaries.
So Tamara kept these detailed diaries, and get this, she wrote in multiple languages.
Really? Like what languages?
She wrote in Russian, English, and German.
Wow, that's impressive, but also kind of strange.
Yeah, it definitely adds to the mystery, and as we'll see, these diaries become key pieces of evidence.
Oh, I bet, because they give us a glimpse into her thoughts, right?
Exactly, but they don't always give us clear-cut answers.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit to 2014.
Okay, so in 2014, Tamara is doing some renovations on her apartment, and she needs a place to stay. So she moves in with a 79-year-old woman named Valentina.
Oh, so they were like roommates.
Tamara agreed to help out with chores in exchange for a place to live.
Sounds like a pretty good deal for both of them.
Yeah, it seemed like it would work out for both of them, but
But what?
tensions started to grow between them.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, it all came to a head when Valentina asked Tamara to move out.
Oh, so they had a falling out?
And this is where things take a really dark turn.
Okay, on the edge of my seat.
Tamara decides she's gonna get rid of Valentina.
Oh my gosh.
And the way she goes about it is truly chilling because she plans everything out.
No, what do you mean?
So she travels to a nearby city specifically to buy a bunch of phenazepam.
What is that?
It's a powerful tranquilizer.
Oh, wow.
And we're not talking a few pills. She gets like 50 pills.
50. That's a lot.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a huge red flag.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like she was planning something.
Right. And then what she does with these pills is even more disturbing.
Oh gosh, what does she do?
She makes Valentina's favorite meal, this Russian Olivier salad,
Okay.
but she laces it with all 50 pills.
Oh my god. That's awful.
Right, it's like this really messed up betrayal.
So what happens after she serves this salad?
Well, Tamara goes to bed, figuring Valentina will die in her sleep.
Oh wow.
But when she wakes up around 2 a.m., she finds Valentina's body on the kitchen floor.
And this is where things get really gruesome.
Yeah, this is where the nickname Granny Ripper starts to make a lot more sense.
Oh no. Tell me what happens next.
So Tamara starts dismembering Valentina's body right there in the kitchen.
No way.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. She wraps the body parts in a shower curtain, puts them in plastic bags, and then dumps them in a nearby pond.
Oh my gosh.
And get this, the whole thing is caught on CCTV.
You're kidding. So there's video footage of this.
Yep, it's super creepy. The footage shows her making like 7 trips to the pond, dragging these bags.
Wow, she doesn't even seem to be trying to hide it.
Nope, it's like she's not even fazed by it.
That's insane. So how did the police finally catch her?
It's a bunch of things that lead to her arrest. 3 days after the murder, this couple is walking their dog, and they find one of the bags with Valentina's body. Yeah, and the police get called to the scene, and they start investigating.
I bet that phone call they got really helped too, right? The one about the woman dropping bags in the pond?
You got it. That call was a huge break in the case. And then there was this social worker who went to Valentina's apartment to check on her.
What happened with the social worker?
Well, Tamara wouldn't let her inside, which was suspicious.
Oh, I bet.
So when the police finally question Tamara, she confesses right away.
Oh, really?
And she also tells them about her diaries, which is when things get really crazy.
What do you mean?
The diaries are full of handwritten confessions to other murders.
Wait, so there are more victims?
Yeah, it looks like it. And the diaries are full of chilling details about how she dismembered the bodies and dumped them all over the city.
This is insane. Can you give me some examples of what she wrote?
In one entry, she talks about killing a former tenant named Vadim and how she caught him to pieces in the bathroom.
That's terrifying.
And in another entry, she describes killing and dismembering a 44-year-old named Sergey.
It's like she's bragging about it.
Yeah, the level of detail is just really disturbing.
So these diary entries helped solve some cold cases, right?
Absolutely. Like in 2003, they found this headless, armless, and legless male body on the same street Tara mentioned in her diary entry about Sergey.
Yeah.
And the details matched up perfectly, including descriptions of tattoos.
So that's pretty clear evidence.
Right. So now the police have a confession, and these diaries, what happens next?
They take her to court, right?
Exactly. And her behavior during the trial is totally erratic.
Oh, really? Like, what does she do?
Well, they keep her in a cage during the trial, and even then she's all over the place. Like 1 minute she's hiding her face, then she's crying, then she's flirting with the media, and then she's acting totally confused.
Wow, that's bizarre.
Yeah, it's a whole spectacle. And this is where her mental state comes in.
You mean because she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia?
Exactly. While she's waiting for trial, she gets evaluated, and they diagnose her with paranoid schizophrenia.
So is it possible that her actions were because of her mental illness?
That's a question we'll explore in part 2 of our deep dive. The court decides that she's not fit to stand trial because of her mental state.
So what happened to her?
She was sentenced to spend the rest of her life in a mental institution.
Okay, so we're back, and things are about to get even more disturbing as we talk about the possibility of cannibalism.
Yeah, this is where things get really weird.
Right? Because Tamara's diaries have entries that suggest she might have eaten parts of her victims' bodies.
Yeah, she specifically mentions eating lungs and legs and even pieces of their heads.
I remember reading that entry about her making lung soup. Ugh. It's just horrifying to even think about.
It is. It definitely adds another level of depravity to this whole story.
But how do we know if these claims are true? Could they be like delusions from her schizophrenia?
That's the million-dollar question with this case. It's so hard to separate what's real and what's not in Tamara's stories.
Yeah, because she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, right?
Right. And with that condition, you can have these really vivid delusions and hallucinations that feel totally real.
So she could have believed these things happened even if they didn't.
Exactly.
Like, we're trying to put together this puzzle, but we're missing so many pieces.
Yeah, and that makes it almost impossible to say for sure what really happened.
Right, so we have these really disturbing entries in her diaries, but no physical proof to back them up.
And to make things even more complicated, the police found all these books on black magic and the occult in her apartment.
Oh, wow. So is there a connection there?
It's tempting to think so, right? Like maybe the cannibalism was part of some ritual.
Yeah, exactly. But we have to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
We do. The books could just mean she was interested in the occult, not necessarily that it was connected to her crimes.
This case really messes with your head, doesn't it? You have this seemingly sweet old lady, but then her diaries show this whole other side of her.
It's a good reminder that looks can be deceiving and that anyone is capable of darkness.
It's true. And what makes it even more confusing is that people who knew Tamara had such different experiences with her.
Right. Some people said she was nice and helpful, and then others said she could be aggressive and really strange.
Like that story from her old school friend who said Tamara threatened to cut her up into pieces and throw her to the dogs.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That's a pretty chilling story.
It makes you wonder if there are even more secrets from her past that we don't know about.
It's definitely possible.
So how do experts try to understand someone who can be so caring 1 minute and then brutally violent the next?
Well, her diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia offers some clues.
How so?
The delusions and hallucinations that come with that condition could explain why she was so violent and why it's hard to tell what's true and what's not in her stories.
So like that maniac upstairs, she kept talking about who she said was making her kill people.
Exactly. That could have been a hallucination, a figment of her imagination.
So how much of what she did was really her fault and how much was because of her illness?
That's a question that's been debated for a long time, and it's something we'll talk more about in the last part of our deep dive when we look at the legal and ethical side of this whole case.
Okay, so here we are at the final part of our deep dive into the story of Tamara Samsonova, the Granny Ripper. We've covered so much ground from her early life to those chilling diary entries and the gruesome details of her alleged crimes.
And yet we're still left with more questions than answers.
Definitely. Like, one of the biggest questions I have is, were there other victims? You know, Tamara had all those short-term tenants who vanished without a trace.
It's definitely a chilling possibility, and investigators have looked into it.
But without bodies, it's tough to prove anything right.
Yeah, a lot of those missing persons cases are still unsolved, but there's a chance they could be connected to Tamara.
So we may never know the full truth. It's like this unsettling mystery that hangs over the whole case.
Exactly. It's like one of those horror movies with an ambiguous ending. We're left wondering if there are even more victims out there whose stories we'll never hear. It's a tough thought to swallow. And it also makes you think about the limitations of our justice system.
That's true. Even with a confession and those diary entries, there's still so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, like Tamara's writing was so cryptic. And then you have her contradictory statements and the lack of physical evidence. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces.
It's frustrating for everyone involved, especially the victims' families, who are left with this lingering uncertainty.
This deep dive has definitely given me a whole new perspective on this case. It's clear there's so much more to it than just the sensational headlines.
Absolutely. We've been talking about the complexities of mental illness and the challenge of separating truth from delusion. And then there are the ethical questions about how we handle cases involving people with serious mental health issues.
One thing that really stuck with me is how this case challenges our ideas about who we think is capable of violence.
Oh yeah, we tend to have these stereotypes in our minds about what a serial killer looks like, and a seemingly harmless grandmother doesn't fit that image at all. Exactly. It really forces us to rethink our assumptions.
Right. It shows us that evil can hide anywhere and that appearances can be deceiving. The potential for violence exists in everyone, and that's a hard truth to face.
Tamara's story also highlights the importance of mental health awareness and supporting people who are struggling.
Absolutely. It's clear that her paranoid schizophrenia played a role in her actions, and her case really shows the complexities of mental illness and the difficulty of determining guilt when someone's reality is so distorted.
It's a conversation we need to be having as a society.
Definitely. We need better mental health care and less stigma around mental illness. Plus, we need to think about how our legal system treats people who commit crimes while dealing with severe mental health challenges.
This deep dive into the case of Tamara Samsonova, the Granny Ripper, has been a wild ride. It's taken us on a journey through some pretty dark aspects of human behavior.
Yeah, we've seen that even seemingly ordinary people can have hidden depths.
And while Tamara will be in a mental institution for the rest of her life, the full truth about her motives and all of her crimes may never be known.
That's true. But her case reminds us that the line between sanity and madness can be incredibly thin. And sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we least expect.
It's definitely a case that will stay with me. And I hope it encourages everyone listening to keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the world around them. Until next time.